And that's where promotion comes in. So the better you promote your podcast using all the different promotional tools out there, that is the most important thing. So, because a lot of people forget to promote their podcast. They just think that if they release it into Spotify or Apple, that's it. They're going to be famous. No way. You have to work to promote it.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. Live from Sydney, I am inviting Darren Saul onto the show today. It's a pleasure to have you to speak about one of our favorite topics. I know it's one of mine, and I know it's one of yours based on what you do for work, the fact that you are a podcaster. Darren, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Annika. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. What got you into this wacky world of podcasting?
Good question. So the journey started probably about 7-8 years ago. And I do a number of different things. I work as a corporate recruiter, and I also work as a photographer. And I started to realize that marketing and sales and prospecting was changing. And I wanted to find a new way to start marketing my brands and my business and find new clients, etc. And I fell into digital marketing and podcasting. And I thought, you know what, this sounds like it's going to be the future. I think I better get into starting this. And so I started up 2 podcasts, actually, one for my recruitment brand and one for my podcasting brand. And I've just fallen in love with podcasting. The results have been amazing. So much more traction, so much more brand awareness, so much more business. And I fell in love with the process of podcasting so much that I started to teach podcasting, because I thought this is just a little side hobby that I'm so passionate about. So why not help other people learn from what I've had to go through in the last 7-8 years as well. So that's me.
Nice. Do you still have your recruiting podcast?
I do, yes. So my recruiting podcast is called Soul Searching.
Ah.
Fun. I just
little
a bit of a play on
words
words
there. Yeah.
And then
fantastic.
My other podcast is called Playing with Perspective. And that's more of I call that my variety show. It's like I can talk to anybody about anything. I don't have any particular lane that I want to stay in. I just keep that broad for the passion of podcasting itself.
Yeah. And you like alliteration, which is nice.
I do like to play with words. Yeah.
Well, I, like you, love this medium. And I think what you're saying, what you do, right, is something that a lot of people don't like to do, or they think is the hard part. It's figuring out how do you get set up? How do you get started? Taking that first step.
Yep.
Yeah. So what is the process that you take people through?
Yeah. So there's lots of different ways to go about it. Like the first thing I'd say to people, if you are thinking about jumping on the podcast bandwagon, and I think I'll even preface that by saying marketing these days is the be all and end all of everything. Like if you don't market, you don't get any results in anything. And podcasting has proven itself to be one of the best ways to market yourself for 2 reasons. One is the actual awareness and the reach that you get from the podcast, but even more so, the engine for creating content, marketing content, is your podcast. So to me, if you're going to be creating content anyway in your business, why don't you start a podcast or get into podcasting and make that your engine for creating content? And then you don't have to do anything else. But I'll kind of take a step back and say, not everybody wants to jump on and expose themselves and be the interviewer and always have to do all the work, et cetera, et cetera. So if you don't want to do all that work and you might not be that comfortable, at least get on other people's podcasts. So stage 1 would be get on as many podcasts as you can, get the footage, and then there's your marketing content and your branding. All right. So that's the easy way out. Then if you want to do it the hard way and you want to, not hard, but you want to put in more effort, then you can go and actually start your own show. And for me, it's a no-brainer. I think it's the most amazing thing that I've ever done. It's brought me so many opportunities. And it doesn't have to be difficult. Like, you can set up a podcast studio at home for $300 or less compared to what it used to be when you had to have a studio and a videographer and a sound engineer and the whole story. Nowadays, all these tools at home are so great. Like, during the pandemic, all these amazing microphones and interfaces and lights and everything came on the market, and everybody's got their own home studio. And the beautiful thing about that is you can talk to people across the world like we're doing right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're at home. And then the actual process of podcasting doesn't have to be difficult. You can make it as detailed as you want to make it. So if you want to make it really complicated where you're doing a lot of production and a lot of editing and, work, you can. Or you can outsource it to people. I've started using some great podcast editors in the Philippines that help me do a lot of this stuff.
I swear by them. Yeah. I've been working with the same team for over 2 years.
Yep, me too. They're awesome.
Yeah.
But there's lots of tools out there now, workflow and AI-driven tools that can make it easier. And when I teach podcasting, I normally teach my 3 P's of podcasting. P1 is preparation, which is all the reason why you're doing it, the strategy behind it, preparing yourself, preparing your guests, finding your show name, all that stuff. Then the actual production of it, which can be as lengthy or as simple as you want. And then there's the promotion. Because if you don't promote your podcast, it doesn't make any difference what you do, what you say, nobody even knows it's there. So it's those 3 things have to work together to really create a successful show, but it doesn't have to take a long time. And the better you get, you start to streamline and automate and workflow things and script things. And, it can take you 4 or 5 hours a week if you're podcasting once a week, or even less if you're using a team.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've found really interesting lately is that a lot of my guests are researching me before they come on, not just by listening to episodes, but by listening to me being interviewed on other people's podcasts. So how interesting is that? And how wonderful of a tool is that? So I definitely agree, being a guest and being a podcaster both add a lot of value. When I promote podcasts on LinkedIn or on other social media, it's usually that if it's for my podcast, I've supplied somebody with the promotional material assets and they're promoting it and tagging me, or it's because I've been on a podcast and they're promoting the episode and tagging me and then I'm resharing.
Yep.
So if you're lazy or time constrained, maybe that's the better word, like myself, then that's a great way also to still have brand visibility, still have my podcast out there, still have my name out there, be able to create these assets for people, but then be able to piggyback kind of on the promotion that they're already doing.
Definitely. You can have your own YouTube channel and your own podcast built on just you being on everybody else's show.
There you go.
Very
So
cool.
I want to hear about your brands, because you have the 2 podcasts. They're each slightly different. You obviously do 2 very different things. How has podcasting as a medium helped you with both brands and the duality?
Without a doubt, the results have been astounding. I'll take the recruitment business to start with.
Yeah.
Recruitment now is really a game of marketing. You have to market yourself top of mind so you attract clients and you attract quality talent. And my podcast has allowed me to really be present on LinkedIn, which is one of our main platforms for recruitment. And I can be on there every day with something, multiple times a day. Whereas a lot of people are just posting the same stuff, or they're struggling what to say, what to use. I've got a whole resource center of material that never ends. I can chop up little snippet videos and turn them into PDFs, and I can extract all sorts of content from my podcasts, and the results have been astounding. So, for example, when I reach out to people, a lot of the time they say, "Oh, how you doing, Darren? Just listening to your show the other day. I love your podcast," or "I learned a lot," or just the fact that I'm warming up my audience because they see me all the time in video form a lot with quality content. I'm not just posting up salesy stuff. So it's helped a lot in the recruitment business, definitely. And from a podcasting or photography point of view, the same. And I've kind of turned that whole brand into a multimedia podcasting brand. So I teach people how to podcast. I have lots of courses. I still do some photography as well, but I label it all under branding and marketing, really. And that's been amazing from a brand awareness point of view. That's my largest podcast. because the other one's a bit more specialized. So this one I've just done episode over 250 now, which is great.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm just going to keep that running and having fun with it. And I love it. So it's been, and there's been so many opportunities that have come because I've been in the podcast trenches for a reasonable amount of time. People get to know you, and then you get opportunities to speak, or you get opportunities to join other shows or whatever. Like, it just happens. But the one caveat is you have to be consistent and patient. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks. You've got to do the work.
Oh, yeah. That's the hard part.
That's
just the consistency, and people can make excuses all day long. I know that, like you, I wear a lot of hats, but the one thing I do stay is consistent with this podcast.
Great. Yeah.
Because that is something that's really important to me. I'd love to hear about your recruiting practice in terms of, so are you primarily working in Australia? Are you helping find jobs for people all over the world?
I would love to, but it's mainly Australia because of the visa issues.
Ah.
That's the tricky part. Like, I would love to work with more people around the world, but if anybody has an Australian visa, no problem. Definitely. But so I mainly work Australia-wide, and I work in IT, and I specifically work in an area called managed services, which is very much IT companies that help other IT departments and things like that.
Yeah.
But I've been doing that for like 25 years, and it's been amazing. I really enjoy it. I love talking to people. I love meeting new people. And the podcast has been an amazing journey and tool from a brand awareness and marketing point of view. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah. And specifically because you are so hyper specialized in that field, I can imagine. But for that podcast, what is the kind of content we'll hear?
Yeah. So for that podcast, you'll hear anything from technical tools and tips to how to go about job seeking strategy, how to ask for pay rises,
nice,
how to lead teams, how to build culture, all those things for managers, employers and employees and candidates looking for work, all the information that's pertinent for their journey. And I try and keep that specific to that. Sometimes a bit of marketing and branding for the corporate space or personal branding. So I just try and keep that esoteric and not talk about films or finance or whatever else. I got my other podcast, which can deal with anything that I want.
All the fun stuff, all the stuff that you can throw at the wall.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
So that's cool. Yeah.
So you talked about consistency being the number one thing that we need. What else have you attributed to your podcast success?
That's a really good question. I would say always being open to learning and listening from how other people do things. Like, if you just do what you do and you never expose yourself to other ways of doing it, you'll end up just doing what you always do, and you don't get any inspiration, you don't get any source of creativity, and you kind of stay in your lane. And it's so much more fun to be able to draw on how other people do things. And that doesn't have to be just podcasters. It could be the movie industry, the music industry, like anything, anybody that's promoting anything, you can learn something and adapt it to your own journey. So that's kind of fun. I love trying to draw from other industries and other specialists in any field and work out, okay, how can I apply that to what I do? That's cool. Maybe I can do that. And then you don't end up doing the same thing as everybody else because you're actually thinking outside the box. So I think really being open to inspiration and learning from others is a big one.
Yeah. That's probably, besides being able to meet people that I would never have met, that's probably one of my favorite things is the inspiration I get from them, the things that I get to learn.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's so much fun. So you specialize in your one area of business, your recruiting business.
Yes.
And you also specialize a little bit in who you coach for podcasting. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So let's talk about that.
Awesome. So if anybody's looking to start the podcast journey, there's so many ways to do it. Like, I can coach one-on-one and really go deep in 3 or 4 sessions and really hold your hand and set you up from A to Z just with me. Or there's lots of really cheap recorded courses that you can jump on and grab as well, or workshops or monthly coaching or anything like that. So I've got entry prices that start at $10 all the way to $600-700 if you want a handheld experience.
And the people you work with, are you primarily working with coaches? Are you working with consultants? Are you working with entrepreneurs? Is there any specific industry?
Yeah, really good one. I try to specialize in the coaching and consulting space because it seems to me that a lot of those are the solopreneurs and small businesses, whereas the corporates don't generally want me to help them. It's like they've got their team and they just do what they do and then, they're not interested. But the solopreneurs and small businesses are usually the people that fit in really well. And the coaching world in particular is one of the fastest growing industries at the moment. It's crazy. There's coaches for everything. And everybody's looking to get their name out there, put their name on a stage, build their audience. And podcasting is beautiful for a coaching industry or even for any consulting type industry because branding is so important.
Yeah, exactly.
So I work with a lot of those, but I'll work with anybody as long as they're willing to learn and do the work.
Yeah. And same question, do you work with people from all over the world or do you primarily work with people in Australia? Because of course the time zone difference.
Yeah. So with this stuff, I can do anything. So anywhere in the world, we do it all virtually if we need to. And we can always find a time that works. It's for an hour or so, hour and a half or so each session. So even if I have to stay up a bit later or get up a bit earlier, we can make it work.
What's the most surprising or delightful thing that's happened out of your podcasting journey?
Well, funny enough, something that I'm going to be doing very soon is I've been invited to help out on a community radio station.
Oh, wonderful.
Which has been which is really fun. So I'm looking forward to starting to learn a bit more from how broadcasting and radio and the experts in that area work. And so I might be helping out once a month. And a lot of my guests that I've interviewed might come on the show as well, but we'll interview new people. But just to get involved in going live on a radio is another whole ball game. So it kind of all that became available because I've been consistent in the podcasting space and been connected with a lot of people, and I've been on their show a few times as well. So when the opportunity came up, they said, "Darren, you want to come and help out?" I said, "Sure, I'd love to." So there you go. There's an example. But so all these little things like that will happen just the longer you stay in it. It's amazing who will approach you and what can happen.
Yeah, I know I've experienced that myself too. Not community radio, but just the delightful opportunities that come up when you stay consistent, when you build your audience, when you keep growing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you see podcasting going, because it's so funny that people talk about, some people naysay it because, podcasting grew so much during the pandemic, so everybody's at home. So there are all these dead podcasts that exist that we can listen to them, but they're no longer they're no longer producing, right?
Yeah,
Most podcasters get tired of this after 20 episodes or less.
That's right. They give up after 10 episodes.
Yeah. So where do you see the industry going, and how do you think that we as podcasters continue to help its growth?
Yep. Good question. There's a few points here. First one is from a promotional point of view. A lot of people will say, podcasting is saturated. Why bother? I'm not even going to start. But all I can say is remember that you don't have to be Joe Rogan. You don't have to become world famous. You just have to be able to influence your circle or your niche or your industry. And you can do that very well in a particular area, in a particular country, in a particular vertical, and you don't have to have the whole world listening to you. Just find your own target audience. And that's where promotion comes in. So the better you promote your podcast, using all the different promotional tools out there, that is the most important thing. So, because a lot of people forget to promote their podcast. They just think that if they release it into Spotify or Apple, that's it. They're going to be famous. No way. You have to work to promote it. So that's number one. So don't worry that, if you're thinking that podcasting is saturated or whatever, it's not, because everybody's authentic. Everybody's got their own voice. Everybody's got to tell their story in their own way. And you don't have to have the whole world listening to you. You just have to have the right people listening to you. Right. So that's number one. Number two would be, again, that the power of podcasting is not even, for me, so much in the actual podcast itself, but it's the marketing content that you get out of it. And that can be useful regardless whether there's 5 podcasts or 1,000 podcasts in your space. You still get the marketing content to use to influence your target market. So that's powerful, right? Hugely powerful. So I don't think podcast is nowhere near dead. It's growing from strength to strength. And I think the next generation of podcasting is going to be a little bit more where podcasters charge guests to come on the show. I think that's definitely where we're heading, because I think people have been doing this now for a long time. They've realized that it takes a lot of work, and there are costs to the tools and the technology and the editing and all that stuff and the time. So we can't just give everybody a platform for free. So we have to start charging a little bit for our time. So, and there's a million different ways you can do that. You can charge people to come on the show. You can give people extra resources. You can give them some of the podcasts for free and some other ones that in a paid play, like whatever. There's a million ways to go around that. But I think all podcasters now that have been doing it for a while are starting to think about, how can I monetize this? How can I turn this into something that's not just me talking and it's just a hobby, wasting 5-10 hours a week on all this stuff. So I think that's the next phase of podcasting. And that's something that I'm doing a lot now as well.
Oh, nice. Okay. What are some of your favorite tools? Because I always love to compare and hear, because there's so many tools out there. It can be really hard to decide what's going to be the best one to use.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So good old Canva is amazing. It can do so much, which can help you with the paid version or the free version. Then there's a great tool, 2 great tools that I use for my video trailers and video clips. One of them is called Splashio, which is just Splash.io. The other one's called Opus Clip. You might have heard of it. OPUS Clip. And they basically are amazing for taking your long form videos and turning them into little 30, 40-second trailers that you can use with captions and emojis and all that stuff to really start making them more interesting and stand out, and you can use them in your marketing. So they're great. ChatGPT, I love. It's changed my world. I do a lot of work with ChatGPT to help me write my podcast summaries and my podcast show notes and all that stuff. And once you it gets to learn your style, it can really do some great things in 30 seconds. I've heard of I haven't used them myself, but my team uses a lot of Descript and Decipher, and they're good for editing and things like that. If you're a Mac person, iMovie is a great product to help you cut and chop your videos up. Really, really great. And if you're a Mac, it's free. If you're not a Mac person, CapCut is really good for that as well. CapCut. Let me think. Anything else that I can really jump out at? No, I think that's about it, really. Yeah. And you don't have to you can keep it really simple, or you can start to really add on more and more layers to what you do. And there's more tools coming out every day. It's crazy.
Oh, so many, I know. Just even with the number of tools that you mentioned, somebody could feel overwhelmed. So just start with one, just investigate one at a time and see what works for you, because the tool that might work for one of us might not work for somebody who's listening.
Definitely.
So,
yep, I agree. Yeah. Yep. Keep it simple when you start, and then build it as you're more comfortable.
And do you see yourself continuing to have these dual brands of the podcaster who is a host, but also helping people with their podcast journeys, and your recruiting side?
Yeah, I think so. I think the podcasting all kind of fits in nicely into one, in a way. And from a recruiting point of view, the podcast has been my most incredible marketing tool. So I would never stop doing that, because that's just incredible. It's even if the reach of the audience might not be huge, the marketing content and the fact that I can reach my target audience from a recruitment point of view in Australia is phenomenal. So it's been really powerful, and I love podcasting so much, as you can probably tell. So I just love teaching people, and I love creating really easy courses an hour or so for people to learn stuff if they're interested, just because it's fun.
Fantastic. I wondered, because you do so much in the space, because you've already found success using it as a marketing tool, because you found it as a way to garner success with both of your businesses, what else looks like success to you? Do you care about the analytics, the number of people who are downloading a show, the guest content, any of that, or getting advertisers?
Yeah, really good question. I'm not too worried about advertisers, because I'm not even sure if I like advertising in the middle of the show. It starts to get, when I'm listening to something and I get this ad, I go, oh God, I'm just fast forwarding 30 seconds, leave me alone. So I'm not sure about sponsorship, but as I mentioned, I've done a course actually on really easy course, and it's 15 creative ways to monetize your podcast. So you can learn a lot about all the non-sponsorship ways, the easy ways to make money potentially from your podcast, even while you're starting. You don't have to have a huge following. I'm passionate about that kind of stuff. But in terms of just general strategy, I think there's so much room, there's so much untapped potential, and just got to keep playing and see where it goes, and it'll just keep evolving.
Have your podcasts evolved over this journey? Because I know this podcast has evolved a lot in the past 5 years.
Right. Mine has, for sure. If I remember my first episode or second episode, I think I did it in the outside noisy area of a cafe on the table with my phone on the desk. And I ran out of questions in about 5 minutes, and it was like 20 minutes, and that was it.
Oh, no.
So if I go back to my first episodes compared to what I do now, it's amazing the transformation journey. So I kind of want to say that on purpose, because people always think you're going to be perfect straight off the bat. It takes practice. It takes time. It takes, you find your style, you find, you start thinking about how to prepare your episodes a little bit, how to prepare a couple of questions, how to research your guest, whatever, and then how to just have a natural flowing conversation by listening and tagging along to what your guests say. And that's all a skill. So, you're not going to be perfect straight off the bat, but that's the fun, to go back after so many episodes and think, wow, look how terrible I was when I started.
I know. Yeah, I think about that. I even think about the fact that I was wanting to just ask a certain number of questions in a certain order and not be flexible and free. Rigid. And that, it didn't feel good to me. I also think about the guests, the experience of, having a podcast guest on who was calling in from their backyard with airplanes going overhead. Now, most guests have a mic.
Barking.
Yeah, exactly. Nowadays, luckily, most guests have a mic, or they have at least a quiet space. They have AirPods or headphones. So it's a very different experience for all of us, which is amazing and fantastic.
Definitely. Everybody's starting to get much more savvy from a content creation point of view. And something that I even do with my podcast is I always send people a little document, allow them to read some strategies for how to prepare for the show, even as far as where to be, how to get your lighting right, how to use the right mic, how to whatever, just to get ready for what they're going to be, how to show up the most effectively they can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's lovely.
Which is really cool.
Amazing. Well, do you have one piece of advice? Because we've gone over a lot, but do you have one piece of advice for somebody who wants to get started on their podcast journey?
Yeah. My piece of advice would be stop procrastinating, start straight away. Because I hear and I talk to people all the time that say, I'm going to start my podcast. I'm just getting my podcast ready. And I might be 3 years later, still doing my podcast. Nothing's happened yet.
No.
Everybody wants to have everything all thought out, everything perfect before they even start. It's never going to happen. Start and then just build it as you go. It'll morph into a million different things. Who knows where it'll lead? But if you don't take the first step, you're going to be still at the same position 3 years later, and you're going to be thinking, what the heck? And then again, you've wasted 3 years. The market's even more saturated. Your target market has been taken by other people. So what the hell are you waiting for? Just start.
So Darren, one last question. And of course, we are going to you have a 7-day podcast challenge.
Yeah.
So we'll have that and your website in the show notes. But I always ask, my last question is, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto?
Ooh. Well, the one that comes to mind, kind of further in line with what I just mentioned, is there was a great book, and I always reference this when I teach. There's a great book by Michael Masterson, and it says, Ready, Fire, Aim. That's the title of the book. Instead of ready, aim, fire. And that pretty much sums up exactly what I was just mentioning, is that you just got to start and build the plane while you're flying, because it'll never be perfect before you take off.
Fantastic.
That's not a great analogy for planes, but planes
not for planes,
should be perfect.
Yeah.
But for everything else, all good.
Absolutely. Well, I know that it's early in the morning, so I really appreciate you getting up, jumping on, and having such a great energy, smile, enthusiasm for
thank you, Erica.
podcasting. It's always fun to meet somebody who has the same enthusiasm that I have. And
Love it.
I just appreciate you coming on and offering some advice to the audience today.
My pleasure. It's been lovely to be here, and I wish everybody the best of luck.
Awesome. And thank you to everybody who's listening to this episode or watching it on your favorite platform. I'll be back again with another amazing guest. But in the meantime, check out the show notes for more information on Darren Saul, his podcasts, his promos for how to become a great podcaster, and everything else in between.
Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.